Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolfe Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating? Today we're trying 5 different macaroni and cheese dinners. And I'm not sure why they call them macaroni and cheese dinners, because they're actually macaroni and cheese cups. But I think it's a bit of psychological warfare. If they call it dinner, it'll make people think that they're getting a lot of food, that way they'll pay more for it. But at the end of the day, it's still just a cup of macaroni and cheese, not really a dinner. It's just another deceptive way the manufacturers catfish us, the consumers. But of course I can't say that's a fact, it's just my opinion. I guess I should always have that disclaimer that it's an opinion and not a fact, because as we know, some of these companies are very sensitive, and they get upset if someone tells the truth about their product. I mean, their opinion about the product. And I'm sure there's more brands of microwavable macaroni and cheese that I don't have in this video. I just used the ones that were available to me. Let's start with the least expensive macaroni and cheese I could find, which was the Food Lion Easy Mac and Cheese Dinner. This 4-pack of 2.05 ounce cups cost $3.48, or 87 cents a cup. Here's the list of ingredients in the Food Lion Macaroni and Cheese Dinners. Each cup of Food Lion Mac and Cheese Dinner has 220 calories, 3.5 grams of total fat, 1.5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, no cholesterol, 470 milligrams of sodium, 41 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, 5 grams of sugars, and 6 grams of protein. The heating instructions are very simple. Remove the lid on the cup, remove the cheese packet, and then add cold water to the fill line. And if you'll notice the white chalky mixture in with the noodles, that's cornstarch that's supposed to help the water from overboiling, which it will also help thicken up the sauce. Once you've added water to the fill line, give it a good mix, and then place it into the microwave uncovered on high for 3.5 minutes. And here's what it looks like after 3.5 minutes. And it doesn't look very appetizing right now. So add the cheese mixture and give it a good mix, and then let it sit for about 2 minutes to thicken up. After sitting for 2 minutes, it's time to give our Food Lion Easy Mac and Cheese Dinner a try. And you can tell it's thickened up quite a bit. And it looks like your average boxed macaroni and cheese. So like I said, I'm not really a big fan of macaroni and cheese to begin with, especially the boxed kind. So I went into this with an open mind to give you, the people, my honest opinion from a non-macaroni and cheese lover. So we went in and got a big spoonful, and to me it looks just like Kraft macaroni and cheese. And for all I know, it could be Kraft macaroni and cheese. Other companies make the grocery store brand generic foods. So into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. I was expecting mushy noodles, a fake cheese taste, and a watery sloppy sauce. But the noodles were cooked good, the cheese flavor was good, and the sauce was somewhat creamy. And for some reason I was expecting it to be extremely salty, but it wasn't overly salty at all. This wasn't too bad. And when I say this is good, or it wasn't too bad, remember my standards are pretty low for these types of macaroni and cheese. So in other words, I'm saying it's pretty good crappy food. And by crappy, I mean highly processed. So if you love these types of food, please don't be offended and think I'm being pretentious. Now let's try the Velveeta Shells and Cheese with liquid gold. These 4 cups of shells and cheese are slightly bigger than the Food Lion Easy Mac and Cheese at 2.39 ounces each, and cost considerably more at $5.19 versus $3.48 for the Food Lion brand. But the Velveeta does have liquid gold, so they should cost more, right? And here's the ingredient list, and it looks like less than the Food Lion brand, but they're just stretched out longer. Each cup of Velveeta Shells and Cheese with liquid gold has 220 calories, 8 grams of total fat, 2 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 10 milligrams of cholesterol, 590 milligrams of sodium, 30 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, 3 grams of sugars, and 7 grams of protein. The instructions for the Velveeta shells and cheese are exactly as they were for the Food Lion Easy Mac and Cheese. Open up the container, remove the cheese sauce, add cold water to the fill line, give it a good mix, and again, you notice the cornstarch, and then it goes into the microwave uncovered for 3.5 minutes. After microwaving uncovered for 3.5 minutes, it's time to add our liquid gold. Now this brings back some memories. It reminds me of the spray cheese in the can. And I know they still make it, but I haven't had it in years. What say you, the people? Do you like the spray cheese in a can? With the way Catherine was squeezing the cheese out, I think she really thought it was liquid gold. So once every last drop of the liquid gold was added in, we gave it a good mix. And the more we stirred it, the better it looked. This was looking super cheesy and super creamy. So once everything was thoroughly combined, we let it rest for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, it was time to try our shells and cheese with liquid gold. So we went in and got a big spoonful. And the spoonful we got looked delicious. That's exactly how I want my highly processed microwavable mac and cheese to look. So you know the drill, into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. And like I said, that's exactly how I wanted my highly processed mac and cheese to look. And it's exactly how I expected, but did not want, my highly processed mac and cheese to taste. This was extremely salty, with a very strong artificial cheesy flavor, and Catherine described the shells best. They tasted like wet, chewy cardboard. They were underdone and very gummy. In the case of the Velveeta shells and cheese with liquid gold, looks were very deceiving. Now let's try the original Kraft macaroni and cheese dinners, which this 4-pack of 2.05 ounce cups cost $5.19. And I'm pretty sure that all of us have unfortunately had this brand of macaroni and cheese dinners more times than we wanted in our lives. Here's the list of ingredients in the Kraft macaroni and cheese dinners. Each cup has 220 calories, 3.5 grams of total fat, 2 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 5 milligrams of cholesterol, 500 milligrams of sodium, 40 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, no sugars, and 7 grams of protein. Now the instructions for the Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner are exactly like they were for the previous two. Remove the lid, remove the cheese packet, add cold water to the fill line, then pop it into the microwave uncovered for 3.5 minutes. After microwaving on high for 3.5 minutes, add the cheese mix, and then give it a good mix. Once it's all thoroughly combined, let it rest for 2 minutes. After resting for 2 minutes, it's time to give the Kraft Original Macaroni and Cheese Dinner a try. And I don't ever remember Kraft macaroni and cheese looking this cheesy and creamy. But I'll be the first to admit, it looks really good. And it didn't taste too bad either. The noodles were perfect, it wasn't salty at all, and it had a good creamy cheesy taste. Very, very similar to the Food Lion brand. Now let's try Annie's homegrown, real-aged cheddar macaroni and cheese, made with organic pasta. These 4.201 ounce cups cost $5.99. So at this point in the review, these are the smallest cups and the most expensive cups. There's a list of ingredients. Each cup contains 220 calories, 4.5 grams of total fat, 3 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 5 milligrams of cholesterol, 390 milligrams of sodium, 37 grams of carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber, 2 grams of sugars, and 7 grams of protein. Now the cooking instructions are almost the same, but they're different. You remove the lid, remove the cheese pack, fill up to the line with cold water, and then give it a good mix. And as you can tell, this macaroni and cheese has a whole lot more starch in it. Now it goes into the microwave for only 2 minutes, compared to the 3.5 minutes for all the other macaroni and cheese. After microwaving on high for 2 minutes, here's what our Annie's noodles look like. So we added the cheese mix and gave it a good mix. Once everything was well combined, we let it rest for 2 minutes. After resting for 2 minutes, the Annie's mac and cheese is actually thickened up quite a bit. And now it's time to give it a try. And again, this looks very similar to the Kraft and the Food Line mac and cheese. As usual, into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. And immediately I got a not so pleasant cheesy chalky flavor. And the noodles definitely needed at least another minute or a minute and a half like all the other noodles. These noodles were very undercooked. I don't know why, but I was expecting something a little bit better. Now for the Cracker Barrel Sharp Cheddar Macaroni and Cheese. These 4 2.39 ounce cups also cost $5.99. Here's the list of ingredients. Each cup has 210 calories, 7 grams of total fat, 3.5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 15 milligrams of cholesterol, 610 milligrams of sodium, 30 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, 4 grams of sugars, and 8 grams of protein. Now to heat this up, remove the lid, remove the cheese packet, add cold water to the fill line, and then give it a good mix, and then microwave uncovered for 3.5 minutes. After 3.5 minutes, it's time to add the cheese. Now this pasta really sucked up almost all the water. So once every last drop of the cheese is added, give it a good mix and then let it sit for 2 minutes. After resting for 2 minutes, our Cracker Barrel Sharp Cheddar Macaroni and Cheese is ready to try. So I went in and got a big old spoonful. The first thing I like about this macaroni and cheese is they give you regular sized noodles, so you feel like an adult when you're eating it. This had very good cheesy flavor without being overly salty, and the sauce was very creamy and the noodles were cooked perfectly. But let me tell you something, in no way does this microwave Cracker Barrel macaroni and cheese compare to their frozen macaroni and cheese. If you want a macaroni and cheese that tastes as good as homemade, get their frozen macaroni and cheese. And that's coming from a non-macaroni and cheese fan. So before I give my final thoughts on what I thought was the worst to the best microwavable macaroni and cheese, stay until the end of the video. There's a surprise taste test at the end. Coming in at number 5 as my least liked microwavable macaroni and cheese dinner is Annie's Real Aged Cheddar Macaroni and Cheese Dinner. It was one of the most expensive. It was very starchy. The pasta was very underdone, cooked according to the directions, and it had a chalky flavor. Coming in at number 4 was the Velveeta Shells and Cheese with Liquid Gold. This one was extremely salty. The pasta was underdone, it was gummy, and it tasted like wet cardboard. And the artificial cheesy flavor was very overpowering. Coming in right in the middle at number 3 was Food Lion's Easy Mac and Cheese Dinner. As you would expect, this was the least expensive, but it was also pretty good. It was creamy, it was cheesy, and the noodles were cooked good. Barely squeaking by Food Lion's Easy Mac and Cheese Dinner is Kraft's Original Mac and Cheese Dinner. The taste, the creaminess, and the cheesiness was slightly better than the Food Lion brand. Coming in at number 1 is Cracker Barrel's Sharp Cheddar Macaroni and Cheese. The Cracker Barrel was the cheesiest, the creamiest, the most delicious macaroni and cheese of the bunch, and the noodles were adult-sized noodles, and they were cooked perfectly. The Cracker Barrel mac and cheese is exactly how you want your highly processed macaroni and cheese to taste. Now we're going to try one final bowl of macaroni and cheese by combining all 5 macaroni and cheeses in the same bowl. Once all the macaroni and cheese is in the same bowl, give it all a good mix, and then pop it into the microwave for about 30 seconds, just so everything can meld together. Let's see if the bad macaroni and cheese is bad enough to affect the good macaroni and cheese, and vice versa. You won't believe what the combined bowl of all 5 macaroni and cheeses tasted like. Processed macaroni and cheese. And it actually wasn't too bad. Maybe all of these manufacturers ought to pitch in together and make this version. I can see it now. The Wolfe Pit Smorgasbord Macaroni and Cheese Dinner. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.